Hello, good evening. My name is Malik Abbasdab. Welcome to PM Express. It's been 4 odd years, a dozen street protests, millions of promises, but the problem remains the same. I'm talking about load shedding, known in local parlance as Tumso. As we speak this evening, we are shedding 480 megawatts of power, enough to plunge almost a quarter of the country in darkness. What exactly are the problems? In the meantime, the Power Ministry and Ghana Gas are engaged in a blame game. How are we resolving this very important issue? Tonight on PM Express, I have a guest who will help me dissect the issues and search for answers. Stay tuned. You're welcome back. Tonight we are discussing power, and it's been 4 solid years and weeks of protests, including a vigil. It's been a million promises, but the problem has defied solution. Why? What is the problem? Is it a problem of money, or it is a problem of skill, or know-how, or simply negligence? With me to discuss this all-important topic is our own friend, Kojo Poku. Kojo Poku is a friend of the show. Kojo, you're welcome.
Thank you. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. You look tired.
Do I? Maybe it's a bit late.
Right. Okay. The last time we met on the show, after we had a worsening situation, you appeared a bit optimistic and you said, oh, this worsening situation won't go beyond 2 weeks. You've been proven wrong. It's been a month or more. And in fact, it's getting worse.
Well, you understand that the worsening situation is getting worse because it's not the same scenario that keeps repeating itself. There are diverse problems that's coming up. And I have constantly said that when we are entering that realm of thermal, okay, we are constantly going to have these problems. That is why I have been a strong opposer to us relying 100% on thermal, because the thermal field has a lot of ifs, okay? And that's some of the ifs that is causing the recent outages. When you have a scenario whereby there is a maintenance or there is a construction going on, and someone says that, look, let's shut down some supply so that this maintenance work can go on. Because we are relying so heavily on these gases, when the gas is not shut down, we are in darkness. I've said that on this platform in the past, that anytime you have thermal, there are going to be instances where there are going to be blowouts, there are going to be shutdowns, and because we don't have a storage, even a day storage, it's not because we don't want it, it's because it's so expensive that if we are to compress the gas coming from the Ghana Gas into liquefied natural gas, which is what they call LNG, we are to liquefy it and store it in case of such emergencies, then we're going to have to expand so much money to get that done. So in the interim, what we have is gas from the field, straight to the processing in Ghana Gas, and then straight to the enclave.
But are we not shifting the argument? Because we had the president say, given the problems with weather patterns, the changes in weather patterns, it was no longer safe for us to rely on hydro. And you shared that view.
No, I did not. I did not share that view. You see, I don't think it's weather pattern. Look, climate change has always been that curve, okay? It goes and comes from time immemorial. There are times when there are rains, there are times when there's no rain. I am very privy to a lot of the hydrology in this country because my company is embarking on a project on the Ankobra River. So I deal mostly with hydrological survey department, so I know the hydrology in the country. There are times when the rains are high. The problem is the galamseys, people disturbing the waterbeds. Look, I can assure you that if you go into the tributaries of the Volta, there are people on there disturbing the waterbeds. Government is not doing anything about it.
We know that rainfall patterns have changed because for the Akosombo, for example, it has to rain in the north and it has to rain within a certain time for the water to come to Akosombo.
Yes, but we've had the rains.
This year, the rain came extremely late, very, very late. If you talk to farmers in the upper regions, they will tell you the rains came very late.
Well, like I said, the rains that has fallen last year and this year is not exceptionally low compared to years in the past. But Akosombo still had water.
It's not about the volumes of the rain, it's about the timing of the rain.
Well, the timing of the rain is important. The volume of the rain is very important. The point I'm trying to get across is that don't blame it entirely on what you can't control, okay, which is the environmental issue, which is lack of rain. Blame it also what we can control is making sure that we put vigilant measures to stop people disturbing our waterbeds.
That is not going to happen.
No, it can happen. Why can't it happen?
It won't happen because it is tied to votes.
No,
it won't happen.
Then let's not. Then that's why I disagree with the president said. The president said it's an environmental issue. I believe that it is policies. Because look, the presidency had the anti-Galamsey crusade at the presidency. After 3-4 months or 5 months, they moved it to the disease. I've said it over and over again. That had zero effect. Go back and see what they are doing now. I have been, as one of these days, I'll bring you a video of me and a team on the canoe, okay, on one of the rivers. And these boys are doing Galamsey, and as you are in a canoe, they are waving at you. But that's not where you feed. But look, most of these rivers comes into the Ghana water supply, which comes into our houses that we feed in. So my point is that, look, let's not distract from the argument. My point is, look, environmental issues are there. We can't control that. What we can control is policies that will stop people from disturbing our waterbeds. The Oti River, which is a major tributary to the Volta River, is being disturbed. Have we done anything about it? No. Other tributaries to the Volta is being disturbed. When was the last time that the Volta was dredged? Okay, there is dredging that needs to be done in the Volta. Have we done those? Have we done these things? We've not.
It's cost intensive. We can't even dredge the Kole Lagoon. How do we dredge the Volta?
My brother. So that's what I'm saying. That look, these are things that if you need solutions, you look at things you can do. Don't blame Mother Nature. We have look. If you go to hydrological department, there are water patterns where there are times where there is rain, there are times there is no rain. Let's not blame that on Akosombo. My point is that the thermal area, in the past, we only have about 35% of our generation being thermal. Now, gradually, we are having a bigger chunk of our generation being thermal. That is going to create problems that we have now.
Let's look at the problems in that area. What exactly are the problems for thermal? For
thermal. Okay.
Because we know the problems with hydro.
The problems in thermal is you need a fuel.
It's a question of money.
Before we get to money, you need a fuel. The fuel for thermal is gas, for now in Ghana. There are two issues.
Or crude. We can use
you can use light crude, but light crude is very expensive. If you use light crude, the cost of using light crude is about 30 cents, as compared to 3 cents, which you get for hydro.
When you say 30 cents, what does
30
that
cents
mean?
per kilowatt hour. That every hour, 30 cents per kilowatt hour. Let's say Akosombo gives you 3 cents, which is in USD, okay, US dollars. 3 cents.
Let's break that down. For my grandma sitting in Wa.
Okay.
If I say 3 cents per kilowatt hour, how does she understand that?
Okay, I wouldn't know how to explain that further for your grandma in Wa to understand. But what I can say is that kilowatt hour, for every hour that electricity is produced in kilowatts, a kilowatt of electricity every hour. If Akosombo turn on electricity, every kilowatt of electricity that Akosombo will produce will cost 3 cents.
3 cents.
If, let's say, it's 4 to 1, we are talking 3 cents times 4, which is about 1 cedi, 20 pesos. Okay?
Per kilowatt hour.
Per kilowatt hour.
That's
I don't know if
the power
that's
coming
if it's coming from Akosombo. Okay. Now, if we use light crude, it's 30 cents per kilowatt hour. So that is the difference.
3 times 4 will give us...
No, one is 0.03, 0.03, and one is 30. So it's a huge difference. So the point is this. Light crude is very expensive. That is why VRA has ceased using light crude for some time because they don't have the liquidity to buy it. But let's now go to the root of the issue. Fuel for thermal is either light crude,
or
gas, or the alternative which is being introduced, which the car power plant is going to use, which is HFO. Okay, now
that's heavy fuel
oil. Yes. So now, if we are going to use thermal by gas, originally this thermal thing came about because we were getting gas from the West African Gas Pipeline, which is NGAS. They are the only source that we had in the past to give us gas through the West African Gas Pipeline through WAPCO. Along the line, we were doing fine. We were not getting the gas as they claim it was. It was intermittent. The gas now came at full power. And then we thought, look, why don't we, as Ghana, as a country, since we've gotten the discovery of oil, and natural gas is a byproduct of the wells that the crude oil is coming from, let's not flare those gas. Let's pipe those gas into a plant that can strip away some of the dirt and then the water and stuff in the natural gas coming from the well, and then supply that to some of our
And in fact,
thermal.
we delayed in taking that decision, so we were flaring the gas, or we were injecting the gas back into the well.
Those are things that happened in the past. But, like I said, so now, we now got Ghana Gas. Now, people were saying that, oh, Ghana Gas is going to come, and politicians will tell you that, oh, when Ghana Gas come, our electricity problems were going to be solved. Some of us said, no, it's not, because what you find is that you have so many people putting up these thermal plants without necessarily thinking, where are we going to get the necessary gas from? Okay, so you rightfully heard recently that, oh, when the Ameri plants came into the country, there were trumpets being blown that, oh, the Ameri is in, we've gotten this 220 from Ameri, we're going to get. Now, they are installing Ameri, okay? Now, those plants are going to be on. Where's the gas?
Well, that's another problem. Today,
right,
the Ministry of Power issued a statement saying the current situation obtains because Ghana Gas shut down.
Right.
Then Ghana Gas issued what I would term an angry response, saying, no, you were the ones who said we should shut down.
Okay.
VRA said we should shut down. We shut down yesterday.
Because they are connecting pipes to
Ameri.
The Ameri, yes.
You cannot then issue a statement and say, we have shut down.
Well, they have shut down. I mean, the issue, you see, my problem with Ministry of Power is very simple. I have always said this over and over again. And when Ministry of Power was under Ministry of Energy, when they had Mr. Bauer as their PRO, we agreed on one thing.
Bauer.
Yes, we agreed on the fact that, look, there should be...
Who's now a parliamentary candidate for Bungu for the NDC?
I have no idea.
He won his elections.
Congratulations to him. What we agreed on one day on one of the interviews was that there need to be regular press conference. Okay, educate. Look, the ministry is not a ministry on their own. They are there for us. You and I, the people at home, deserve to know what the problem is. As me and you stand, the reason why we are sitting here and trying to educate the listeners and the viewers is that they don't know.
But is it not the case that the same ministry itself sometimes does not put out all the facts? Because
that's what I'm saying. They should do a press conference, regular press conference. If you have you get the minister or the PRO to sit there with the minister, VRA, ECG, all the power players come and brief them. If they brief them, you brief us Ghanaians. So as I said, I have no doubt in my mind what the light situation is in the country. 100% of Ghanaians don't know what's going on. You don't know, I don't know. I know because I'm nosy and I tend to be in that industry whereby I am developing an hydropower plant in the Western region. My company is an oil and gas company. So by day to day, I work in this sector. So I know some of these things. So the person in the village in Kumasi, in Takoradi, and in Sunyani does not know.
So let's help them understand. Now, we do know that Ameri is in.
Right.
And they are trying to connect Ameri to the gas.
Yes.
And what does that take?
Well, there's a lot that goes into connecting a gas pipeline. You realize that those gas pipeline, when even is connected, they have to basically make sure that the valves, they don't expect blowouts and all that goes into it. But we don't even expect that to start generating immediately because they have to do a test run. And with the test run, we will probably take a couple of weeks or 2 weeks. Now, these are some of the problems that we might have because somebody is trying to rush to a deadline, okay? Trying to say, oh, I'm going to end doing so by 31st December. we might not necessarily have to give them the breathing space to do the test runs and to make sure that the plant is installed properly.
But they set the deadline. We didn't set the deadline.
Well, I know. That's what I'm saying. That is the problem. And the same problem that we had with the situation Akosombo is in now. When Akosombo water was going down, the engineers at Akosombo told the politicians that, look, at the rate at which we are running these plants, we are running these generators, the water level is going to go down past a certain level. That's dangerous. They didn't listen. They keep telling them, look, put the power out. Now we're in a situation where Akosombo is where it is. My situation is that I hope the politicians lay off the engineers. Let the engineers take their time in doing the test runs, making sure that all the bolts and nuts are done properly, so that we don't get a blowout. Somebody in a rush to meet a deadline, we don't get a blowout on some of these plants. The car power plant is going to come in. That also is going to take 3 weeks, 4 weeks, depending on the engineering stuff that needs to be done to plug it into our grid. I expect them to give those people their breathing space, not to be rushing to a deadline.
Let's stay with Ameri before we do car power. How much power are we expecting from Ameri? And by the way, Ameri is African Middle East investment power plant.
I think Ameri is 250, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, Ameri is 250, yes.
So, and
250 megawatts.
It is expected that by within next week, they would have finished with the connections.
Well, you see, that is not from the engineers. This next week you're talking is not from the engineers. You see, engineering is not like, yo, next week, how would you bring a whole plant in, you're trying to set it up with the pipelines and everything. How do you give yourself next week? This is not the clay play that we used to do at home. This is not child play. This is serious stuff. So who gave the next week? I'm telling you that this, if you go and find out from the engineers on the field, this next week was given by the politicians, not the engineers. So that's what I'm saying. Let's not put pressure, okay? Look, we don't live in a culture where people resign. We don't live in a culture where people say things and come and say they are sorry. At least we have one person who has promised to resign. But he's not going to resign. And the person who gave him the power is not going to sack him. We don't live in that culture.
We don't know that.
My dear, we don't live in that culture. Who do you know in Ghana that has resigned?
The president has promised that he would hold this person, and I'm talking about Power Minister Dr. Kobna Donkor,
yes,
who himself, without any pressure on him,
yes,
on his own volition, yes, said that if by December 31,
he is not faced the problem,
he had not dealt with, but that itself is a problem.
But he's not going to resign. That's the point. Why would he resign? If he resigns, what does it solve?
Well, but even last week, even though he tried to give us some technical definition, he said he had promised to deal with load shedding, not doomsaw.
Right. Whichever way he decided to deal with it, whether it was doomsaw or load shedding, my point to you is that we don't live in a country where people resign. It's not our culture. Look, in the Western world, people resign for less. Look, somebody has a fiancé. The fiancé's maid, okay, gets a documentation, immigration documentation. Now, the person whose fiancé's maid got a documentation is the person in charge of immigration. By so doing that, the press got to know that, oh, his fiancé's maid has gotten papers, okay? The person resigned. I'm talking David Blanket in the UK. Now, in Ghana, the Minister of Interior or whoever it is would laugh. Resign for what? We don't resign in Ghana. So let's not expect...
Maybe Dr. Kobna Donkor will set the example.
He is not. Look, if I was His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, and 31st December, Honorable Donkor does not resign, I will sack him. The reason I will sack him will be... The
president may do that.
No. The reason I will sack him is not because I don't think he's competent or incompetent, but I would want to set an example to my ministers that if you can't do something, don't promise Ghanaians, because my presidency means business.
But the president himself has promised several things that have not delivered.
Then Ghanaians have an opportunity, not at the end of the year, but in election time, to now decide whether his presidency has delivered or not delivered. So the presidency had to... See, His Excellency has to December 2016. That one is up to us Ghanaians to decide whether he has delivered or not. Then we can decide with the term. But Honorable Donkor gave himself a deadline, which nobody forced him to. My point is that if I'm His Excellency, I will sack him to prove a point that, look, don't open your mouth and say something you can't deliver. To set an example.
Are you not expecting the president to hold his ministers to standards that he does not hold himself to? Because we do know that
we Ghanaians hold the president to a certain standard. That's why in election we vote him in or vote him out. But he has the right to hold his ministers to a standard. We don't determine what standard that is. He knows his standard. What I'm saying is that if I am the president on 1st January, if the DUMSO or the load shedding is not connected, I will not sack him because I think he's incompetent. I will sack him because I think you don't open your mouth to say things you can't deliver.
But you think he won't sack Dr. Kwabena Donkor?
No, I don't think he will sack him.
And you think the man will not resign?
No, I don't think the man will resign.
Then where does he leave us?
He leaves us in a situation where we find ourselves before he took power, in darkness. That is why, look, we are doing this show to half of the nation that's in darkness. That is where we've been the last 3 years. Look, we've gotten to the situation whereby the solution is so deep-rooted that you have to feel sorry for the ministry, in a sense that most of the issues and the problems that comes up, it's not their own doing. It is where the direction that we are going, which is thermal. Look, it comes with all its adherent problems. And that is why the minister shouldn't have said that.
Let's do car power. There are those who argue that car power was a bad idea from day one. I have an issue. Do you share that view?
No. But car power, at the point that the idea was conceived, was a good idea. Because, look, bear in mind, a year or 2 years ago, we had a serious problem. We are just basically in the mid-crest of this problem. And when car power was conceived, and it had come in immediately, a month or two after the conception of the idea, it will have been a brilliant addition to our generation capacity and will have been there till today. And also, car power should have been taken on for 2 years or 3 years, but not 10 years. Okay? So the idea of car power
was not a bad idea. Why do you think it was a bad idea to take it for 10 years?
Because then the money that we are going to spend for something like that in 10 years and it can be just driven away after 10 years, to me, I think it is not a fixed infrastructure. If we're going to spend that money on a fixed infrastructure, a ship that can sail away at any point in time, I think is not the right thing. It's an emergency power plant, and it was in a different country. It was producing power for a different country. We had a problem. We went to car power. They said, okay, we'll give you one of the emergency power plants that we have. They unplugged it from another country and brought it to us. Same way, 5-6 years down the line, if they so wish, they can abrogate the contract and take the ship to a different country. So my point is that it is not something that you take on for that duration. The terms are so expensive. For a short period of time, to get you over a hurdle, it's okay. But for a longer period of time, it's enormous to the country. The cost is too enormous.
But car power is 10 years, and you think that's way too long?
I think so. I think 10 years was just too much for that deal to be taken on for 10 years.
Why do you think the authorities who made the decision made it?
Why did I think? You see, look, car power, I think, if I'm right, and I think within reason, there is a certain part of their generation that is covered under emergency power. Okay? There is the emergency regime. And after the emergency regime, they go back to the IPP, which is an independent power producer. So I think within the first 2 years, which they are going to use HFO to do their generation, I think they are under the emergency power regime, which because we are in need of the power. Then after a while, they are now win off the emergency power schedule and goes into IPP. But like I'm saying, I don't know the details of the contract of when they now comes out from emergency to become IPP. How does the charges, okay, what they charge, how does it change, or how does it add up? But
we have somebody on the line who may help us answer the questions you are raising.
Okay.
Mr. Theophilus Achampong, good evening and welcome to PM Express.
Yes, hi, evening.
We are discussing DUMSO, and we are talking about specifically about thermal, and we are zooming in on the car power, there are those who argue that taking car power for 10 years was a fundamentally flawed decision. The reasoning was flawed. Do you share that view?
Yes, good evening once again, and thanks for having me. And I think, though, and this is what we have come to on the basis of the documents I've seen, that the agreement with car power in and of itself fundamentally is flawed. And I share with the views by many people and those indeed who have done such similar analysis. And why I think it's flawed is because that there's nowhere else that I know of that you sign an emergency, so-called emergency power agreement for 10 years. That doesn't work anywhere else. And two, and the agreement has a take or pay clause. That's basically that whatever power you produce, the government through ECG needs to pay for that power.
But that is fair, isn't it?
Oh, of course, that is fair, but that is linked to the price. So as I read or as I understand the contract, the price for the power over the 10-year period is basically locked and fixed at around 20 cents or so a kilowatt hour, which is way, way, way higher than the average thermal unit generating cost of about 13, 14 cents a kilowatt hour. And, well, you can argue that at the time the government was constrained, this was at the height of the, doomsday crisis, and therefore they basically negotiated from a position of weak power relative to if situations had been normal. So in that sense, when you look at the totality of the agreement exposed, because now the doomsday situation is not as bad as a couple of months ago, you can then begin to appreciate that, the contract itself cannot really be characterized as emergency power. And two, the payment structure and the fact that, you've got a 10-year locked-in price for the producer as well does not really inure to the advantage of consumers.
But let's interrogate this decision. We do know that there are about 4 plants in the Tema Power Enclave. We know there's Asogli and all of those ones. Put together, I understand we can generate 340 megawatts of power from those 4 plants. If we get sufficient gas from Nigeria through WAPCO, we can produce 340 megawatts of power from these 4 plants. Now, we don't have money to pay the Nigerians so that they will continue to supply us with gas. So we go and bring in car power, and we are depositing $100 million, which if we had that money available, we could have used it to pay part of our debt to Engas so that we continue to get gas, so we continue to produce cheap energy or cheap power. Then we went to deposit $100 million with car power, and we are bringing them in. And you are just pointing out that the power that they would generate is far more expensive than that which we would generate ourselves if we had sufficient supplies of gas.
Yes, that's fundamentally, it's right. Because so remember that if you're using gas to generate power, it's always cheaper than, say, if you're running on heavy fuel oil, and so the unit generating cost would always be much higher. And so it comes with a cost-benefit sort of rule. Would you rather, if you were a policymaker, have deposited or used that $100 million that we used as, the guarantee to offset part of our debt to VRA, and therefore VRA paying Engas, which supplies gas through the pipeline? Or would you rather have signed this particular contract, which basically locks you for 10 years in a price that you really cannot do much about? That's a judgment for Ghanaians to decide themselves.
We do know that gas compared to light crude is cheaper. Now let's compare gas to the heavy fuel oil, which Kapa is going to use. Which one is more expensive? Do we know?
Heavy fuel oil is a lot more expensive than using gas. And gas gas is always the cheapest option when it comes to thermal generation. So look at it this way. You move from gas to light cycle oil to heavy fuel oil. But the LCO, which typically you would use, that is also tied into the international price of oil on the crude market. So what tends to happen currently is that with the suppression of prices on the international market, you would expect relatively to have oil prices for LCO come down, and that should also lead, if you were using that for generation, to lowering your cost. But gas, at the end of the day, is like your base denominator. It's always cheaper than any other form of oil.
Are we going to be able to pay for the power that Car Power will produce?
Well, the power that Car Power is producing, they have a contract mechanism that basically ensures that they are paid at the end of the day. And so there are two things that would happen. Either consumers have to pay more for power, or government has to find a way to absorb that through subsidies. These are the two clear policy options, because remember that the energy base or the energy mix is actually changing now. So you do have a lot more thermal plants constituting your base load relative to hydro. And so if you've got more thermal power plants constituting your base load, then the implication is that people have to pay, or consumers will have to pay more for the power being produced. Or if we're going to cap prices for a considerable period of time, then government has to find a way of subsidizing or absorbing that subsidy. And I don't think that the policy position from the government is that of the latter. So they are much more likely, or consumers are much more likely to pay more for power in the foreseeable future.
Because we know that government does not have the money to pay, does it? Because government is already owing. Now we know that government is owing VRA, government is owing ECG, because government is unable to pay. What is going to happen if government were to owe Car Power and is unable to pay? What are the likely implications?
Well, I mean, a number of things can happen commercially. So again, let me take you back one step, that you would sign a power purchase agreement with ECG. And ECG, if they default, so the actual contract is not with government, as in government in and of itself. This is with ECG. And the 100 million guarantee is basically to say that if ECG defaults in payment, then we can take part of that 100 million to offset that payment schedule. But also, remember that what's happening now is, in terms of who it gets paid first, the IPPs are always paid first, even before VRA is paid. And that has been the policy position for a while now. So I'm struggling to see a situation where government wouldn't have the money, or ECG wouldn't have the money to pay Car Power. Just if that were to happen, then Car Power can readily go and then, take part of the money that has been put into the escrow account. Other than that, if the amount owed is greater than that, then they have to use commercial means, and that means having to sue ECG, in a court to recover
and we may have another judgment them. Theo, hold the line for me. Let me talk to Kojo, who is with me in the studio. So now we know that if Car Power were to produce power today, the government won't dare owe.
No.
And yet government owes ECG.
Well, government owe ECG because of the MDAs and all the SOEs that government submit. It's not a matter of there was a contractual that government has failed. It's just people not paying the electricity bill. That is why government owe. It's just a matter of, if government wants to pay its bills to ECG, ECG will have its money. So if you have a perfect scenario, you would have had a situation whereby ECG will go around and do disconnection, and they'll disconnect all the SOEs and MDAs from their grid because they owe. But in the case where we live in Ghana, it's not possible that ECG has the power to be able to go and disconnect the ministries and the agencies and the state-owned enterprises from their grid, the schools and the hospitals and all those things. There will be an outcry.
The last time we had this discussion, you made a very you made a suggestion,
right,
which was a revolutionary idea,
right,
that the schools,
yes,
should be made to pay.
Yes.
And it would appear government took your advice and tried to implement it, but there was a pushback. Nooks went to negotiate with government, and government said, okay, don't pay.
You see, it's about the will and conviction. I think that there is no shortage of ideas when it comes to governance. The next step after when you've conceived the idea is to have the will to carry it through. And anytime you have Nooks, NAGRAT, and all the other unions there to contend with, I think the first thing you should do, don't just put out certain policies knowing very well that there's going to be a pushback. There are two ways of negotiation. You can put forward a worst possible scenario, okay? But you know where your end game you want to be. So if I was government, I will put out there a worst possible scenario. NAGRAT, Nooks, wherever will come to the table to negotiate. Then when they do a pushback, I will now arrive at where I want to go. So be it. We will now negotiate, and I'll be seen as being the listening government that I am, and then soften my stance and get to where I want to be.
But if people take it in transigent positions, they don't want to move. What can the government do?
No, they would have to, because
of the people.
Well, if you take a situation and people come to you and say, "Oh, I won't listen," then you are you're taking a transit position. But if you take a hardline position and people come to you and you shift your position, who will come and fault you that you didn't listen?
Let me bounce that off with you, Theophilus Acheampong, on the line. You submitted that you do not think that government would default when it is dealing with car power. In terms of the power that car power is going to produce, you don't believe that government will not pay. And yet we do know that government is not paying ECG. If the consumer is unable to pay, because you pointed out that government may not have the money to subsidize, if the consumer is unable to pay, what will happen?
Well, it's quite unlikely, that the consumer would be unable to pay. So what might happen is that the tariffs would have to go up, and so PURC, which sets tariffs, the companies would go and make proposals to PURC that based on the input generation mix, based on the exchange rate, based on efficiency factors, this is how much we think that prices should increase relative to a certain base period or year. And therefore, what has happened over the last couple of months or even years is that you've had consistent increments in tariffs, and I don't really see how that is not going to carry forward. But there are protests.
There are protests. Political parties, civil society organizations.
The protest would always be there, and the duty of a government is to take these on board. But at the end of the day, nobody would produce and sell below their cost. You would not buy oranges on the market for, say, 1 cedi and turn around and sell them at 80 pesos. Nobody does that. And so if anything at all, then they have to break even on their cost. And remember that for a number of these power producers, the biggest issue sometimes is actually the depreciation in the currency. So you produce power in dollars, and then you have to sell power in cedis. And before you sell that power and the time that you get receipts for your payment, you could have suffered massive, exchange rate losses. And you can hedge that one way or the other, but I'm not sure I know of any company that can hedge as much as 30%, 20% depreciation of a currency within, a very short time frame. And so what would happen is that the current trajectory, this is what I think, that the current trajectory of prices increasing is more likely to continue despite the opposition that would come from any of the labor unions or the CSOs or the political groups.
And you are talking about prices. Before I let you go, I want us to tie up the question about prices. What exactly is the clear price difference between a kilowatt of power that car power will produce and a kilowatt of power that, say, Asogli or Tico or VRA will produce?
Right. I can just give you indicative figures. I've not really crunched the numbers to give you the exact, but I do know off the top of my head that using heavy fuel oil typically to produce power, you're talking of anything between 18 to about 21 cents a kilowatt hour. Whereas Asogli, which runs on lean gas, would generate at between 12 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour. And so if you use the base case estimates, you're talking of a differential of about 6 to 7 cents a kilowatt hour between what car power would produce and what Asogli would produce, or indeed any of the other thermal power plants that use gas as their feedstock.
Zachampong, we are profoundly grateful. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
Could you price difference?
Right.
I think that will be a big problem going forward in 2016, because we do know that normally when elections are around the corner, the politicians play games with utilities. Do you see that happening, given that at this point we're at a critical point? Because I understand government is owing VRA alone more than $1.3 billion. If we were to pay that money, it means the Eurobond that the finance minister took at a rate of 10.75% cannot even clear that debt.
Well, I have said over and over again that with the debt, government debt to ECG and VRA, see, bear in mind, you can go to the Eurobond or even the Ghana bond and bond that debt. You don't have to go and take Eurobond and come and pay that debt. It's an instrument which anybody in their expertise, which the government has a lot of, can bond. I've heard that there are moves within the government circles to do that, okay, that they are trying to raise a bond for the ECG debt. But you see, government is in a very tight corner come 2016. One, there is a bottom problem of no money, whereby you have...
The government doesn't believe that.
Well, I don't believe there's no money. But you see, there is that situation of no money. No money in the sense that you can only rob Peter to pay Paul, because the government only have a set revenue coming in 2016. You can't conjure money, okay? So government knows how much it can receive from taxes. Government knows how much it can receive from donor funding. There is only a set amount of money that can come in from for government. The only thing that government can do, which is very dangerous and has been done in previous administrations, is that they would do a lot of work which they won't pay. So the receipt outstanding will be high.
So we would delay the problem.
Thank you. So you delay the receipt. So if government is giving out contracts, if they want to, they know they will look at things they can owe. Okay, so in 2016, they'll probably give out all these contracts they want to give out. And since people want contracts, they will take the contracts, but government will not pay them, but the contract will be executed. So government will hold on to those receipts or those certificates for 2017.
Because already we have about certificates that government hasn't paid for, running into about $500 million.
Well, as that stop contractors, have you ever had contractors going on strike before? Has that stopped contractors from taking contracts? This is the only country where government will owe a contractor for 24 months, and the guy is still in the ministries chasing contracts. Why? You see, that's the problem you have to ask yourself. It's because they know what they are getting out of it. If contractors, they will lament to you, and my certificate came, it went to the bank, they're interested, but that same person will take a contract again. There are so many contractors that have been doing this. I was a contractor once, I stopped.
Let's take a break. When we come back, we will continue with this discussion. You are watching PM Express, and we are discussing power. Stay tuned. Yeah, welcome back. We are discussing power. We're talking about the cost of car power and what government will do next year going into the elections. We know that already government is owing a lot because the MMDAs, the universities, the polytechnics, the senior high schools, all of these rely on government to pay. And in fact, barracks And the last time you were talking about police and military barracks and why they should pay. It is not happening.
Right. It's not happening because, like I said, it's the will to go out there, cut them out, put them on prepaid, okay? And then before you do that, you have to make sure they have a way of generating funds to be able to pay. There's no point telling the military to pay their own electricity bill when you've not given them any ways of generating the funds.
Is the government its own enemy?
Yes, because it is being able to decide certain decisions, implement them, and see it through. If you can't decide, implement, and see it through, then there's no point. You can decide, the minute you put it out there, like you said earlier, government decides that universities should pay, then nukes come in, there's a pushback, and government withdraw because you think of, okay, this is a political suicide. But you should be able to decide, see it through. Now, the issue of car power is going to produce electricity, and we pay the electricity. Government don't pay the fuel for car power. Car power gets its own fuel. How they get their fuel it's not the problem of government.
No, but that's not quite exact, because at this point we know that the GMPC has already guaranteed them fuel.
No. What GMPC did was that GMPC put money in escrow. See, there's an escrow account that money was placed in there. And that money is for escrow in failure of paying the bills. But car power procure their own fuel.
Okay, we may have to check this because my checks indicate that there is another arrangement by which on the 9th December we are expecting Scarlet Trader. Scarlet Trader is carrying the heavy fuel oil which car power is going to use. So by December 9th, there's going to be Scarlet Trader will come in with this fuel. And whilst it is pumping this fuel into car power, which it will use to generate the power, another one will come. Natalie will come in January so that Scarlet Trader can leave, so that it will go and refuel and come back.
Yes.
So at every point in time, there's a ship here carrying
the
HFO, which is going to power car power to produce the power. And we are told that even this one, GMPC has guaranteed, because if that guarantee doesn't happen, car power cannot on its own be buying fuel and producing the power.
No, that is the agreement. The agreement is that they procure their own, because they didn't want, even in car power's interest, not to give the fuel to the government. Because if government, in the same situation where we have a VRA and all these situations where they don't have money to buy N gas or light crude, we are in darkness. They didn't want to, because in the agreement which they have, the same way that there is a clause whereby they can go into the escrow, there is a penalty on car power if car power is not able to produce electricity. So they didn't want a situation whereby the production or the provision of fuel is on the hands of government. So they are doing their own fuel. What government does is that if car power produce X amount of electricity in a month, they send the bill is paid. Government has nothing to do, as far as I know, government has nothing to do with the fuel that goes into car power.
The president has promised that he would deal with the power challenges, and of course he was making political statements.
Right.
He said he would deal with the power challenges before December 2016.
Yes.
And that if the opposition hopes to use the power crisis as a campaign message, they should better think. Next year, do you think we are going to be looking at a sustainable solution or a political one?
Well, let me be a devil's advocate, okay? Now, let me put this out there. Even if the other opposition parties want to use doomsday or load shedding as a political football, they should be able to, today or tomorrow, put out there what their solution is. I don't see it. Okay? We can all fault the guy in power that he's not doing enough. But if you want me to vote for you, what are you going to do for me?
Yes, but let's look at the president's
promise. No, I understand that. But what is the point is that even if we are in darkness, let's say today is tomorrow we are going to vote, and we are in darkness today. What will let somebody vote for you? It's not because we are in darkness. It's because you can give a concrete solution to the problem. So let's not, the president is in power. He's telling you, I'm going to resolve the problem before the next election. He might be able to, he might not be able to. That is for us Ghanaians to decide. But if I'm not going to vote for Mahama, and I'm going to vote for PPP or MPP, then you have to show me the voter, the alternative, what I'm voting for. Not just because the man there he couldn't do, because he could also argue that, look, I have spent 4 years, I am almost there, give me another 2 months to
That's
to
fine.
do it.
I wanted us to stick to whether we will be expecting, given what the president's promise
that the problem will be resolved.
Whether we are going to get a political solution or a sustainable one.
By December this year, the problem would have gone down. I cannot say that doomsday or load shedding will have been eradicated, but I will be very surprised if the problem by December next year, we are still in the same darkness.
By December next year or this year?
No, by December next year. You're talking about what the president said.
Yeah.
The president has said that we are going to eradicate, or he is going to eradicate the problem by December, by election time next year. The problem will go. And you are saying that he said that if they are thinking of using that as a political football, they are not going to have any sources. And my point is that even if it is a political subject, the issue is not what has he done. The issue would be you, the person that you want me or you to vote for, what is your position? What are you offering? What's the alternative? So the president would have failed. Yes, we know that His Excellency John Mahama has failed us. We are in November 2016. There's no light. MPP, PPP, all the other parties, the PPPs on all the parties. What are you also offering? What is the tangible solution that you have on the table?
So let's look at solutions in 30 seconds.
Right.
The last time you said the universities should pay. The president, the government wanted them to pay. It's moving back on that. What should we do in 30 seconds?
They should push back on that. The government should put its foot down and let the universities, the barracks, the police, the fire service, the prisons, everybody find a way for them to generate funds to pay their own electricity bill. And the government should cut itself out of it, bond the debt, pay ECG for them to fend for themselves, VRA to pay their debt, and then this problem will be over.
Kojo, thank you. Thank you very much.
Right.
That's Kojo Poku. Kojo Poku is the Chief Executive of Gasop Oil Limited. He's been helping us with answers to the teething problems of power. My name is Malik Abbas Dabo. This has been PM Express. Good night.